Hi, everybody. I'm Stephen Louie, and this is the GrowerIQ podcast. In our second episode, we continue to chat with Shlomo Booklin, the commercial cannabis grow guru. We talk about the medicinal future of the plant, growing overseas, and the best business-friendly jurisdictions. Enjoy! I asked Shlomo about the various international jurisdictions he's worked in and which ones were getting commercial cannabis right, particularly which ones were business-friendly.
Israel is very leading in respect to clinical research on basically trying to have a specific strain or varieties for specific conditions. So they do run a lot of clinical trial in hospital. They do it properly.
Right.
So that's where I think the future of the cannabis is. I think that on the long run, cannabis is going to be a commodity. And if you're looking at, again, tomatoes today, it's very, very hard to make money from tomatoes. The only one who actually make money is Heinz when they do the ketchup and all those formulations. So I think that the market is going towards very specific, as I said, specific plans for specific target or condition or illnesses, whether it's skin condition or whatever. I'm involved in a very interesting and very, very exciting project. It's in the project we do in. The project is in Portugal, but it's with collaboration with a German pharmaceutical company and a cannabis clinic in Spain. That they try to find a way, plants that are good for Alzheimer and Parkinson. Alzheimer and Parkinson, as we know, it's a disease that is generated from the brain. Because, it's something in the brain. And we know that we have a lot of receptors or cannabinoid receptor in our brain. So there's a very good chance that there is something that the cannabis can do with it. Furthermore, the traditional pharmaceutical industry don't have anything for either Alzheimer or Parkinson. They basically, what they can do is give you something to alleviate your
symptoms.
But they cannot really do something to prevent it, to prolong it, to delay it or whatever. So this is something that I'm really, really excited to be part of it, is, trying to find, again, properly, not anecdotally, but scientifically, something that will help Parkinson and Alzheimer. Because, again, I believe that because it's kind of generated in the brain, similar to autism or similar to PTSD. PTSD basically, again, as someone that's been there, I think it's, your brain is running on a higher speed, and you just keep on processing the same loop again and again and again. You're just running in a circle like a madhouse. And if I could, basically, the cannabis, when you have PTSD, is like when you remember with your own computer, when they start to freeze, you press Alt, Delete, Control.
Yeah.
So that's basically what the cannabis do to the brain. If you
gets you out of that loop,
it just get you out of the loop and restart again. So recalibrating. So that's basically what I felt at the time, and I still feel today that cannabis can be helpful to certain things that are generating in the brain.
Right.
Basically to restart or reboot your brain, if you for the lack of better word.
Right. Yeah, and that's definitely one of the most exciting things about the industry legalizing, is that now we can actually spend some money and find out what this plant actually is doing and is made of, and how it interacts with us, instead of, we've had years and years and years of anecdotal evidence, sort of very clumsily treating people with this medicine that you smoke, which is the stupidest way, I think, to get a medicine in your body. And so, yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm very glad that hear that this kind of work
I
is
mean, I
happening.
think on that note, I definitely have a lot of criticism to say about the Canadian companies. I mean, not all of them, but definitely the share big market, a big part of them. They talk so high about medicinal. They never have any, substantial amount of money going towards research,
Right.
which is very, very, very disappointing. I mean, again, Canadians is, as far as I can tell, I'm only Canadian for the past 20 years, but Canadian is about, the social,
social goods,
solidarity and
right.
doing good for the community and things like this. And still, you can see all those companies that whether it's they evaluate them as 7 billion or 2 million, they won't even give $10,000 or $100,000 for research. So it's really, really disappointing. And it shows also where the core value is. So again,
Yes.
this is disappointing, especially if I compare it to what I told you about this project in Portugal with the German pharmaceutical company. So they're not making money, but they still definitely.
So do you see more of that activity happening in Europe than in US and Canada?
US, I cannot say. I mean, the US have one thing to them, which is money.
Right.
Everything that the US does, it has to be big and lots and lots and lots of money. I think what I see from the market is that there's a lot of pharmaceutical companies that are sitting on the bench, on the fence now, and they can see that there is less and less. They can see the margin shrinking, not by huge because they steal so much money.
Oh, you mean on the traditional drugs?
Yeah, but they're losing some income because of cannabis. There's
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so there's about 20, I would say 20 to 25 conditions in the states, in those countries, those states that are allowed to have medicinal cannabis. There's about 20 conditions that you can prescribe cannabis. And firstly is the pain. Painkiller is definitely very big thing in the US, and the pharmaceutical makes tons of money on the painkiller.
Sure.
It costs them peanuts, really, really cents to make a painkiller, especially if they make it in India, ship it to America, wrap it in a nice flashy thing, and they put it in the thing. So they make, I don't know, trillions, zillions of money that on the pharmaceutical on painkiller. Once you see that, especially now with the opioid and things like this, the pharmaceutical companies do feel that threatened by the cannabis, and like they're all saying, if you cannot beat them, join them.
Mm-hmm.
I am sure that they are doing something on the cannabis front, but under a different name. So, God forbid, they will can say Johnson and Johnson do something with cannabis.
Yeah, tarnish their reputation that way.
Yeah. So, but they do it behind the scene. Once they legalize it in the states on the federal level, we will see a floodgate of money. In the amount that we never seen before, and we never even thought about it before. I mean, those pharmaceutical companies, they normally put about $1 trillion in order to launch one product.
Right.
Think what
and years.
Yeah, and years. Think what will it do to the cannabis industry if those trillions of dollars now going into those painkillers made of cannabis and all of the PTSD and autism or I don't know what. So
to me, that's the most exciting part.
Yeah, so the American once they once they will allow it to do it on the federal level, they will pour money left, right, and center. And if you want, they will offer you a 400 million for your facility. If you don't sell it for 100, they will give you 600 and go. So that's what I see. But I would definitely argue that they won't do it just blindly because of the cannabis. They will look for consistency because they are pharmaceutical companies. So they will look for consistency. They will look for scalability. The way that if you open a facility here in Denver, I can copy and put it in New York. So that's what scalability, which is again goes back to the SOPs and so that's basically where I see and preach companies to do that, because that's the only way they're going to be attractive for the pharmaceutical company. And if they even ever think of exit, and run with with $1 million to the bank, that's the only chance to do that. And they have to comply with, compliance, consistency, and scalability. This is what the pharmaceutical companies are going to look for.
Yeah, I think pharma is going to be the real delivery of the promise that is cannabis in terms of financial and also in unlocking the actual potential of this medicine for people.
Yeah, and they will do it in the proper way with clinical trial and scientifically
safety trials, all that stuff. Yeah. Do you think there's a barrier in terms of sourcing the molecule from the plant for pharma? Because aspirin, that comes from willow bark, but Bayer doesn't grow willow. They synthesize it chemically.
So again, there was a couple of places that I know that they've tried to synthesize or create THC in synthesize THC, and it's proven to be deadly. Deadly. There were a couple of dead cases that just people took it, and basically the brain doesn't take it well. And so there were a couple of, probably I would say 5 people that they tried to took synthetic THC.
So there's a distinction between synthetic THC and then biosynthesized THC.
Yeah. So that's the biosynthesized, I think it's what it is. But I think what we know, and from what I read and from what I hear in the industry, it's not necessarily, it's totally different from the, traditional pharmaceutical industry, where in the pharmaceutical industry, you isolate one ingredient, and this is the pharmacopoeia, or that ingredient, the active ingredient that you can say, this is good for headache, or this is good for, I don't know, whatever you have.
Sure.
I think what they say or what they find out in the cannabis is what they call entourage effect.
Sure, yeah, the synergy.
Because it's a combination of probably 30, 40, maybe 100 different cannabinoids. Some of them we don't even know what they call because we haven't isolated them.
Right.
But they're talking about CBG, CBN, CBL, CBLJ, a couple of, things that I, as I said, don't even know what they are. Today the market is solely focused on THC and CBD. But, research, especially in Israel, are starting to show that CBN is good for sleeping. And CBL is good for that, and CBG is good for that. So that's where the same way that you have now in the market high THC and high CBD and 1-to-1 ratio. I think the next generation is to say, okay, CBN is good for sleeping. Then we're going to make hybrids of varieties that are high on CBN, and we will prescribe those to patients that have insomnia or I don't know, whatever.
Sure.
So that's where I see, but that's a long, long process. I think, again, going back to what you said about Europe, from what I've seen, and again, I spend majority of my time in Europe, the biggest bottleneck is lack of education for doctors. Doctors are still reluctant to prescribe it. There is in Germany, strict difference between doctor that can prescribe you cannabis and doctor that can prescribe you oil from cannabis. So it's two different doctors.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So when I was at Tilray, that 2013, 2014, I think there was 3, maybe 4 doctors that could prescribe cannabis. You had to wait 3 months to see them. You had to pay them $1,000, and then they prescribe you cannabis. With time, now we have, of course, cannabis clinic in every corner, like just Tim Horton.
Yeah.
Right now, this average of 10,000 new so-called patient every month, and purely because they want to save the PhD and the HST, because on medication you don't pay HST.
Which I find incredibly dangerous. I mean, doctors, like you mentioned, they don't know and are not confident in the information on how to dispense this stuff. Meanwhile, you have these dispensaries where, let's not kid ourselves, there's people that are going there that are looking for some sort of medical benefit from cannabis, and they're taking advice from a 20-year-old bud tender that's sitting there, and thinking that information is gospel and is verified and is, which I think is a huge problem.
Yeah, it is a huge problem, but, it is what it is. I mean, there's a saying, not necessarily about Canada, but I think it's applied to this, that government do the right thing after they try everything else.
Yeah, I've heard that one.
So I think, we have to be patient, and, Rome hasn't been built in one day.
That's a very fair comment. Yeah.
It takes time for the industry to develop. I think what's going on now with the valuation of those companies, it's a very good thing, getting those companies to their real value. So this adjustment is very good. Right. It will definitely fan out all those, BS companies.
Yep.
Again, not that I have anything particularly against Canopy or Tilray or Afria or any one of them. It just, they didn't do the right thing. I won't give you names, but I work with 2 Canadian companies. They have tons and tons and tons of product. They cannot sell it. The prices that they are offered are around $2 or even less than $2 a gram. And it's definitely not the evaluation or the income that they were planning to. They have hundreds of people. They're still living on the drawing money from the bank. But life is a supermarket. At one stage, you get into the till. So
yeah, fair enough.
As long as you're around the aisle, you can pile everything on your cart. But
so those companies, I mean, they're trying to make a go at growing a tropical plant in Canada. How dumb is that? And where are good places to grow cannabis on a commercial scale?
On a commercial scale, definitely Colombia. Again, the basic botanic plants, the basic botanical or biological aspect of the cannabis plant, and if it's boring you, let me know.
No,
it's called what they call photoperiodic. So the plant life cycle is depending or on the length of the daylight. This is the biological clock that the plant has to adjust himself to the season of the years. In the year. So we call it, photoperiodic, the same way that the poinsettia or that red Christmas plant that everyone buys in Christmas turn red when in December when the day gets shorter. It's the same principle with cannabis. So cannabis, in order to grow, needs a long day. because in the nature they germinate in the area of what they call Kush today, or India or Pakistan. So they, during the summer and the spring, they have a long day. And when July comes and the days start to get shorter, they bloom. Because again, this is the cycle to know that they have to start blooming with the day getting shorter. They will bloom throughout June, July and August, and they will make seeds in September. So that's the biological phenomenon that we know about cannabis. So again, if we want the plants to grow, or what we call vegetative stage, we give it a long day. If we want him to bloom, we give it to him 12 hours.
Right. So I've seen a lot of pitches for grows that are around the equator, and presumably the day there is about 12:12.
Exactly. So that's basically what I'm trying to say, that Colombia sits on the equator, or part of it, at least, sits on the equator, and they have, in this respect, amazing weather. They, that area in Colombia, what do they call today, Medellin or Pereira? It's basically, they call Medellin the internal spring, because it never goes above 27. It never goes below 15.
Oh, wow.
So it's amazing. As I said, it's the eternal spring. This is the second name of this city. And
So
it's always 12 hours light. 12 hours
right.
light, 12 hours
so
light.
So with 12 hours light, I always thought, is that because in the vegetative state, you want more than 12 hours light?
Yeah, so you get 14, 15, 16 hours light.
But in a place like Colombia, if it's constantly 12:12, how are you getting your plant to stay in veg?
The room and the vegetative room, when the plants are relatively small, you're
supplementing light.
With supplement light in one room.
Oh, I see.
Because they're small, you can put 200 or 300,000 or even 1,000 plants in one room, because they're small.
Right.
And, cutting or propagating in vegetative stage, the plants are small. You can put them in a small cup, and until they grow to about 30, 40, depends on how far you want them, they still can stay in a, what we call yogurt cup. And you can place tons of them in a tray, just like yogurt.
Gotcha.
And once you want to bloom, you put them in either in the field or in a greenhouse, that you don't have the blackout and the light or artificial light, and they will just go and bloom in the natural.
Gotcha.
So in this respect, in a greenhouse setting in Colombia, you don't need to have any blackout, and you don't need to have a supplement light. So the initial cost is very, very limited.
Gotcha.
Going back to what you said, tropical plant, there's no wonder that we don't grow mango in Canada. It just too expensive, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know why. Again, the fact that Canada became the first G1 or GA7 to legalize cannabis is good, but on the production, on the long run, there's no, we don't produce here, mango.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, in theory, we can grow even papaya in Antarctica.
But at what cost?
But yeah, exactly. But how much it's going to cost you, and who's going to buy it for you from,
right.
100 euros one papaya, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's got to be a really good papaya if that's the case. This podcast is brought to you by GrowerIQ, a compliant cannabis seed-to-sale and cultivation management platform. The first platform to integrate all facility systems like sensors, controls, QMS, and ERP, all into a single interface. GrowerIQ changes the way cultivators use software, transforming a regulatory requirement into a platform to learn, analyze, and improve performance. We're talking a little bit about where to grow. So in terms of the regulations, the regimes that have been put in place, I mean, you've seen all of them.
You've helped create some of them, I imagine. Where are the international regimes that are doing it right, and maybe I might add, that are business friendly?
So Portugal is definitely very friendly with a couple of things. So they're very efficient. They promise you within 60 days respond. So not like Health Canada that it takes you 2 years to put application and you don't know who to talk to, and basically no one to talk to. So
you get your decision in 2 months, basically.
Yeah, again, providing that you give them everything, right? If there's something missing, they're going back to you and things like this. So relatively, it's quicker. It's very, very clear, the regulation. You have to do A, B, C, D, and E. And if you do that, you will get it. So in this respect, it's very easy. I think that I might be a little bit biased. Yeah, but I think that Barbados is trying to do a very good thing. They're a small country, but they definitely have they haven't published the regulation yet, but they definitely do a lot of homework to do it right. And they're going to publish them soon. They were talking about November. But again, I was lucky to be involved with some of helping them with some of the regulations. So they're doing a lot of work behind the scene to become very, very pro-business minded.
So in that jurisdiction, in Barbados, I mean, they don't have a lot of space. So from what I have heard, they're not actually looking to be a production site so much as a transit site. Is that right? Is that the sense you get?
Yeah, I mean, again, they try to boost the economy because they realize that, tourism is, especially after COVID, is not the only thing. And see what happened in Greece, for example, which we can go on Greece in a second. But basically, they realize that tourism is not, the golden goose. And they have to consider alternative things. So they want to give some farmers ability to grow outdoor or indoor or whatever they want. They planning or counting on some investors to bring in some heavy money to do bigger industry, processing, extraction, things like this, and to create a lot of jobs. So I think, again, as I said, I might be biased, but I think that Barbados is definitely walking towards the right path. I know about Ecuador, which in theory, has the same advantage or even more than Colombia because they are sitting totally on the equator. And they have set up regulation that you're not allowed, they call it medicinal cannabis program, but basically you're not allowed to grow anything above 1% THC. So all they have basically is hemp.
Right.
You cannot call hemp as a medicinal cannabis industry. It's a hemp. So again, this is where regulation, I know maybe, I don't know why, but maybe because of political reason and internal reason, they decided not to do any of those psychoactive high THC varieties, but under those rules, they cannot be any international player. Australia is very, very, very slow. It's just like Health Canada, or even worse. There's probably 5 companies now, and there's another 15 or so in the pipeline. Those 15s are basically draining out of money, and who knows if when it comes the regulation, could be that by the time the regulation comes through, 10 of those companies won't exist anymore because people sitting on, waiting. And going back to what I said, Greece, Greece had a huge potential, just like Portugal, to start another industry on agriculture industry, to couple to move away, or as much as they can, away from tourism. They income is 80% of the GPD is here from tourism, and they want to do something. However, they did it the Greek way, and there's 5 different government offices that deal with it. So
oh my gosh!
So there's Ministry of Justice, Ministry of Health, Ministry of New Industry, Ministry of Environment, and I don't forgot the other one. So it basically stands still because no one wants to take initiative. If you go to one, they send you to the other. If you send to the other, they send you to the third one.
Oh my God!
You go to the fourth one. He said, no, this is the first one that you have to go. So it's kind of running around in circle. They're 60 or, so far they issued 32 licenses. Only 2 of them are started with something. One of them I'm involved with. So they did put some money and build the greenhouse and everything, but also the export, they don't know if you're allowed to export flowers, if you're allowed to export only finished product. If it's finished product, it has to be all the way to the individual packaging that goes into the pharmacy shelf. So no one knows anything. And when you try to get a clear answer, and those obviously investors sitting with money, willing to put some money, but when they try to get some clear answer, they get a runaround between 3-4 different bureaucracy offices.
So Greece, we'll put firmly in the not super business friendly category. So a couple more questions here for you. One is kind of a classic one, and through your work and experience in the last 6-7 years in the industry, what are the most common pain points you've seen for growers, for commercial growers, in terms of compliance, production, scale, all that stuff?
Well, again, I can see a lot of Canadian companies that did everything right. They did everything by the book and put a lot of money into it because they thought it's going to make a lot of money. But the one obvious thing that they didn't consider is market. Where are you going to sell your product? And
gotcha.
None of those companies in Canada actually did some homework and say, okay, I'm going to sell to him. So that's where now you have companies that are producing tons of it. Again, I don't want to mention names. They sell it to other companies. They have, in this respect, let's say Tilray. They sell their product as a wholesale to Tilray. Tilray then change it into their own packaging and sell it throughout their so-called delivery mechanism that they have. So this is where I see a lot of Canadian people had it wrong. A lot of other Canadian, again, I don't know exactly whose fault is it, but it is what it is. They wanted to comply with Health Canada, which is GAP or GPP. And then they realized that in order to export to Europe, they have to be with GACP and GMP or EU GMP. So out of the 100 or so Canadian LPs, we have only 6 or so that actually are, in fact, EU GMP.
And from what I understand, it could take a long time to get certified.
It takes really, really long time. So before COVID, it took about average of 18 months from the time that you ready and put the application for someone to come and inspect you. So someone from, again, if you want to export to Germany, someone from Germany has to come and inspect your facility that you are indeed comply with EU GMP. Obviously, the German are, as you know, they're very strict, and it's not easy. Malta was another option that they wanted to consider to entertain, and I don't know what what went wrong along the way. But Malta is definitely another place that, they have the advantage of being part of Europe. They have the infrastructure because a lot of other companies, of pharmaceutical companies, like I said, India or other places, Malaysia, prepare the raw material in their own country, in India or in Malaysia. In this respect, send it to Malta to process it and package, and then for Malta it's EU GMP ready to go all over Europe. Right. They wanted to do the same with the cannabis. I don't know what went wrong, but basically they haven't done much about it. I went to Malta a couple of times, spoke to a lot of people, both official and other stakeholders. It doesn't move forward, so I don't know.
So you mentioned.
Go ahead.
Sorry. So I was just you mentioned COVID just now, and I want to come right back to that. But saying, you don't, a lot of these companies didn't have their market right, didn't know exactly who they wanted to sell to. That decision definitely would inform, I guess, the production side, what you want to grow. On the grower side, with your growing hat on, what are some of the pain points in that side of the business that you've seen across the different grows you've worked at?
So again, my biggest point that I would say is that they have, not all of them, but a lot of them have growers or master growers that have been the traditional growers. They used to do things their own way, and regulation is far from them as west from the east. Compliance is not a cup of tea.
Right.
So this is where there's a lot of, on the growing side. There is also the fact that, again, because of regulation, because of security, because of I don't know what, the first waves of producer wanted to do indoor, and which is very costly. So, in Canada, again, you have 7 months a year bad weather. So your cost of light and the cost of your environmentally facility is very expensive.
Right.
So this is second thing. Only few out of those commercial growers actually do it in greenhouses now. And Afria probably is one of the first one. And that's why, again, Afria is a public company and they have relatively everything available to you to read. If you look at the cost of production of Afria, it's going to be around $1.7 a gram, which is still a lot compared to Colombia.
Right.
But it's one of the lowest in Canada, given what we have in Canada, which is labor. Labor is always around 55% of your cost of production, and obviously the climate. So if you have, even in Leamington, you have 10 minus, and your greenhouse has to be at 30 or 25, then your delta is anywhere around 25 degrees. So it's very expensive. And if you have in the summer plus 30, you have to cool it down to 20. So, and then you have a problem of humidity and things like this. So, which again comes back to, in order for most of Canadians, because of the indoors and because of the condition in Canada, in order for them to comply with Health Canada regulation of no mold and quality regulation, they have to irradiate the flower.
Right.
This is not legal in Europe. Right now, they don't have much choices, so they kind of prefer to close their eyes and say, I didn't see it. But once there will be other alternatives in the market, and the European has to choose between radiated and non-radiated, they will definitely take the non-radiated. They don't like it. It kills the terpenes. It tastes bad. Even on the oil. So again, this is something that Canadians have to get the act together if they want to keep on standing in the international market. As I said, right now the market in Germany is so desperate, so they will take anything.
Mm-hmm.
But once they start to get product from Portugal and other places in Europe that's produced without radiation, then no one will buy from Canada. I know, again, and I don't want to mention name, one producer who actually has EU GMP. They have a grower that is the all-time grower. And the production is full of powdery mildew. From what I heard, they already got paid for their product, and they don't have anything to deliver to those German market or German client. I've seen their facility; it's horrible. There's no one plant without powdery mildew. They will get probably 25% of their production what they plan to harvest, and even that they will have to irradiate to move away all the mold. It's bad, but again, this is the condition they built. They took advice from as I said, the basement grower. Again, no disrespect, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But the lack of better word, we can call them basement grower. So those basement growers used to grow in a basement. So they copy the basement on a large scale. So you have facilities with 10 or 15 rooms that look like basement.
Right.
And the condition in those basements are like in basement. You have a high humidity, not enough ventilation, not enough room, not enough light, not enough air movement. And that's it causing. So going back to your question, I think the biggest mistake. So again, I don't know what to call it, but it is what it is. But the biggest challenge that local growers or most of the Canadian growers are facing is non-professional growers, and the fact that they think it's different industry than any other horticulturist industry.
Right.
If you could have taken someone that grew tomatoes or grew cucumbers, he could do a way better job.
Do you see this problem also in the overseas projects you're looking at?
No, I think overseas what I see is again not all of them, but some of them.
Right.
Some of them, and there's 2 or 3 projects in North Macedonia that I'm involved with, that I've seen it. 2 or 3 of them actually did take so-called basement grower to help them. They are now facing some challenges and problems. So far, they so-called, because they cannot export, so they grow and throw away, or on the book. But in fact, they grow and sell it in the black market. So these some growers now, they have to realize. I think that what I see in Portugal, for example, I think they look at it a little bit better. I think in some places in Colombia, I also see that the big companies taking actually
professional growers,
agronomists or something like this to be actually to lead. So there is a mentality of giving some respect to professional, which is probably something to do in the inherent thing. You give respect to lawyers, you give respect to teacher, you give respect to officer, to police. I don't know. This is going out of scope. But I see that in Europe more. Definitely, for sure, the German, the North European are definitely going that way. They do give a lot of respect to professional, whether it's for extraction, so they hire people that understand in in that milieu. But even for the extraction, the aromatherapy market is relatively very big in Europe. So the same way that you could do extraction from, I don't know, lavender and rosemary, basically they respect the person that did the extraction, and now they're expecting to be as professional when they do extraction from cannabis. So in this respect, I do see that there's a respect for professional, and they do hire professional. In Canada, again, because and in this way, I might say also that also in the US, there's very, very big presence of so-called black market growers that, hey, I did it so good for the last 10, 15 years. Why wouldn't I go and do it legally now?
Right.
Obviously, they won't get the same amount of money because the market is, they're not going to be paid more than, $2 a gram, where until now they could sell it for 6, 7, or whatever they want to do it.
Right.
So they're not going to see the same margin if they try to be legal, and then they will have to still comply with everything else, including security and things like this. So I think I don't know. I'm very pessimistic about on the long run of the cannabis industry.
Right. Really interesting. And so my final question for you is, with the rise of COVID, what have you seen change in terms of SOPs and operations in the grows? If any?
No, I haven't seen much because, again, most of the places that I've seen, they did adopt some kind of pharmaceutical, dress code when it comes to the production. So most of the places that they do production, they ground up, they put a lab coat, they have gloves, they have masks on their faces. So in this respect, it is not that much different in terms of COVID. There was a couple of places where, because it's relatively remote, where, if we're talking about London and Ontario and things like this, that there was some kind of scare and people didn't want to go to work to be together with 50 people, but that's over now.
Right.
So it was only a kind of small local sorted of people.
Right.
I've seen it in a couple of places, but not major. I think the biggest difference is that people in the industry used to have these conferences and seminars. Again, even for myself, this is the only place that I could, promote myself, make myself notice, to see to people that I exist, present myself at things like this. So I haven't been in any trade show since, I don't know, December. So that definitely has effect on that. It's affecting the global industry in terms of the fact that people, because of recession, because of many other things, and again, it's not one thing, but anything together about what's happening in Canada in respect to the industry, the cannabis industry. So there's lack and there's less and less willing from investors to put money into projects related to cannabis. The investors themselves became much more educated, so they really want to look up and down your business plan before they give you any money. And because you cannot really meet people face to face, and that's basically how they used to, do the transaction of money.
Right.
I cannot say to you, over the phone, listen, I'm a nice guy, send me $1 million. Right. So I had to meet you, present you, show you my business plan.
Which now is incredibly difficult. And I just want to note, you are talking to me from a hotel in quarantine right now, having done some business overseas. I mean, that must be quite a wrench in the works.
in the 4th of July, I was 2 days in Spain. I had to come back. I came back on the 5th of July. I came back on the 5th of July. I had to be in quarantine until the 21st, 22nd of July. On the 24th, I traveled back to Europe. I was 3 days in Europe. I came back on the 28th, and now I have to be in the quarantine until the 12th of August. So, every time I go for 2 days to Europe, I have to come back and stay. It's very expensive as well.
Yeah.
It's very expensive. I pay $100 and something a night. I don't even get, to order room service. No one knows how to get into that room. So it's
no kidding. Not to mention, I'm sure there's some business that's foregone because of the time you got to spend.
Yeah, well, most of it I can do over Skype, just like the way I talk to you. There's a lot of things I can do over, the computer. But, in terms of me actually going and visit clients and visit the production facility and give do my job and giving my advice, I am grounded. So, it's, COVID is definitely hit me very strong on my income.
Right.
Again, I'm lucky to be in Canada. The government has been tremendously helpful with all the program that they had, CURB and everything else. So that helps a lot. But just like anyone else, I'm longing for this to be over. I mean, sometimes I catch myself and I say, I cannot believe it that we are in the 21st century and we small invisible virus can kind of, do that to the whole world.
Yeah, just
I was
halted
encouraged.
society.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying it halted society. Everything stopped.
Yeah, I was encouraged because I was on my travel. I flew via Germany and Amsterdam and Paris, and actually, the airports and the plane inside Europe were packed. I couldn't get.
Wow.
One seat free. There was not. So in a way, I mean, it's almost like pre-COVID. The only difference is now people are with masks. But,
right.
Having said that, we still hear now that it's coming back to France and Spain. So I don't know if it's a second wave or what, but it's definitely not good for business.
Yeah.
But, on the other hand, the consumption hasn't, changed much. If it changed, it's changed for good. So people are drinking less, smoking more. I think it's good for their anxiety.
I think that's a great thing overall.
So for that respect, the industry is doing well. There's a surge in sales, not surge in prices yet, but surge in sale, because again, people have more time. They cannot socialize, so they it's easy to smoke.
Hopefully it's working through that backlog, and some of those people that have some of those companies that have those huge surpluses can work through them with this COVID.
I hope so. Yeah.
Well, Shlomo, thank you so much. Thank you so much for spending the time with us today, and I really appreciate you being so candid with your answers. And hopefully we get to chat again sometime.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, thank you. Take it easy, Shlomo.
Bye.
All the best.
That was part 2 of our interview with Shlomo Booklin, horticulturalist and famed commercial cannabis grower. Hope you enjoyed it, and please stay tuned for more episodes of the GrowerIQ Cannabis Podcast. See you soon!